So despite billions spent on homelessness, the crisis seems worse than ever. One South Bay program that aims to help the unhoused is worried about a setback to its successes. So Continuum of Care is a federal initiative that helps get people off the street and into permanent housing. But that progress could soon slip away. Our John Ramos spoke to housing advocates who say recent federal funding changes could impact the program.
Logically, the goal of any homelessness program is to get people off the streets and into permanent housing. And here in Santa Clara County, thousands have done just that thanks to federal funding. But now federal funding is changing, and there are those who think even more people will be turned out into the street because of it. The Trump administration doesn't like the way the battle against homelessness has been fought. They think the real problem is drugs. And HUD Secretary Scott Turner announced big changes to what the federal government will be willing to fund. Quote, "Our philosophy for addressing the homelessness crisis will now define success not by dollars spent or housing units filled, but by how many people achieve long-term self-sufficiency and recovery." End quote. At issue is a concept called Housing First, where homeless people are put into apartments subsidized by federal funds. Ray Bramson, with a South Bay housing group called Destination Home, explains how it works.
The concept behind it and the science is pretty sound. You get a person who's homeless into housing with as few barriers as possible, and then you get them whatever support that they need. So we started to move to this, started to have really good results. And that movement was growing for a long period of time, but now we are headed in a different direction.
Now HUD says only 30% of their Continuum of Care funding will pay for permanent housing. The rest will be spent on transitional shelter-type housing and abstinence-based drug treatment. Those are important, but what happens to those currently housed? Until now, 85 to 90% of HUD funding has gone toward permanent housing, about $48 million in Santa Clara County. James R. Williams, the county executive, said in a statement that more than 2,500 people have stable housing as a result. Quote, "There is no doubt that the federal administration's actions will reverse years of progress, displace thousands of residents, overwhelm local shelters and emergency rooms, and cost taxpayers far more in crisis services." End quote.
How are we going to pick 30%? Who's going to get to keep their housing?
Vivian Wan is CEO of Abode Services, a housing advocacy group. She says HUD's new focus on requiring people to be more self-reliant is missing a key point.
And a lot of the people in permanent housing are older, disabled, unable to work to be able to afford the high rents in the Bay Area. So it's really dramatically impacting what we're doing and how we're doing it and who we're doing it for.
I think it will change the nature of the work that we've been doing for decades, and it'll lead us to a place where we're not solving the problem, we're just putting a Band-Aid on the issue.
Is this going to drive some people out of permanent housing back out into the streets?
I think absolutely, if we defund permanent housing programs and people have nowhere else to go, they could end up without a home.
At this point, those who work to house people have no idea what will happen when the changes take place. The new approach will focus on getting people off the street, even if it means returning those who already left it.
The funding shift will start in January when local governments and nonprofits apply for grants. The process is said to be competitive, with funding being offered at the administration's discretion.